Today I'm going to try and turn some old pallets into an outdoor table for our patio. Pallets are a great free source for wood if you have the patience to take them apart. Speaking of taking them apart, if you drop them just right, they'll just fall apart. Just kidding. You have to prop them up like this and whack at it a bunch. Try and resist the urge to pry with the back of a hammer. You'll definitely split the boards because they're not super high quality. There are also a lot of nails to remove, which is especially important if you're going to be using some power tools to cut these. Great, now that I have probably more than I need, I can start building. I sort of have a design in mind, but I'm also just figuring it out as I go. I'm starting with the legs, which will determine the height of the table, and I'm making it 30 inches. Okay, now to figure out how to connect them. I got lucky. One of the pallets I took apart was made up of a lot stronger wood than usual pallets, so I'm going to use those for the rest of the frame. I'm not really sure how to connect them at this point. Something like that. Would also look cool if it was at an angle, so it's symmetrical, but I don't want to have to deal with cutting that. I want the table to be a perfect square, so I'm going to trim down these boards just a bit. Most of the boards from the pallets were about 45 inches long, so I figured that's a good size for the table. In hindsight, I should have made it a little bit shorter, but it worked out. And I'm going to be using pocket holes to connect everything. I'm giving it a rough sand before putting it together just to make it easy to access everything. I should have done this for the top of the table too, but I didn't. I decided not to use glue on the legs and just the screws. That way I could take the legs off and it'd be easy to move the table if I ever wanted to do that. Okay, I changed my mind about the whole no glue thing. I figure the trade-off of having it be a lot stronger is worth it. Great, and with that, the frame is done. It was a lot sturdier than I thought it would be, so that's a plus. For the top of the table, I'm just gonna lay a bunch of these boards across it like that. And I quickly discovered that I'm gonna need some supports. I'll put two in something like that. And I'm avoiding putting one in the direct center. That way, if I ever wanted to add an umbrella later, I wouldn't have to cut through one of them. With those in place, I can now start arranging the top. I had a lot of wood to work with, which was great, so I had options. But a lot of the pieces turned out to be too weak to use, or just shy of 45 inches, so I had to make do with some that weren't the right length. But that's all part of the aesthetic of making something out of pallet wood, I guess. I really wanted to glue all these pieces down without screwing them in. I didn't have enough clamps for every single one, so I worked something out like this, but that didn't seem to apply the same amount of pressure to each piece. So I decided to glue up just a couple at a time. After waiting for that glue to dry, let's see how it did. It didn't really work. Some of the pieces didn't get as much pressure as they needed. I clamped those ones down individually and then decided that wasn't the best option, so I tried pocket holes from underneath it, which I was pretty hopeful for. But as I soon found out, even the shortest screws I had were poking through just slightly. I decided it wasn't worth it anymore to avoid screwing it in from the top, so I'm just gonna go for it. I could have glued each one up individually, but that would have taken forever because I don't have enough clamps, and I really wanted to finish this table. So screwing it in from the top was the fastest and best option. Great, that didn't end up looking as bad as I thought. Now for some sanding. Some of the boards still needed clamps to keep everything together while the glue dries. I also wanted to fill in some of the holes, not all of them because that would be too many, but just the ones that were bad and could cause splinters down the road. And this is where I wish I sanded these boards before putting them on. The edges were a bit sharp on the surface, but I may do. For finishing, I had some leftover stain from a previous project. I'll start with that, and then I'll also need to do some sort of outdoor finish. Not sure what yet. After letting the stain dry for a couple days, it's time for the finish. I'm going with this outdoor waterproof deck stain because in my research it seemed to be the most durable option. It said it only requires one coat too, which is a plus. And this project is almost done. I love building things out of reclaimed wood for a couple of reasons. I feel good about reducing waste and giving this wood a new life. Plus, we wanted an outdoor table anyways, so that's one less table someone else will manufacture. The wood also has that rustic look to it, and if you're patient enough to take apart pallets, you can have it for cheap or free. I wish we could all spend more time reusing materials and giving new life to them. That's one of my favorite things about making stuff. This table won't last forever, probably. But for now, I feel good in knowing I made something a little more beautiful.